Many of us are at a precipice of sorts where we are considering making some really big changes in our lives. And interestingly enough, that is in perfect alignment and synchronicity with this full eclipse that we are going to be having in a couple of days. Now, you likely feel the intensity of this even more if you have any planetary placements in your natal chart around 23 degrees of Virgo or 23 degrees of Pisces, or even Gemini or Sagittarius for that matter, because those would be in a square relationship with this full eclipse. Now, because we're in the United States, we're actually going to be experiencing the full eclipse over the entirety of the country. So in a lot of ways, all of us are going to be affected by this, even if you don't have a planetary placement at 23 degrees of any of the mutable signs. And it might just take a little bit more time for you to see how it plays out and how it is affecting you particularly. But for those of us who do have planetary placements around those degree points, there are some big shifts happening, big changes happening, and it's something that's really going to change the direction of our lives. Now, let's just take a quick peek at what's going on astrologically currently up in the sky. We have the moon over here around the midpoint of Leo. We have Mars around the midpoint of Cancer. Jupiter is over here in Gemini. We have Uranus still at 23 degrees of Taurus. We have Chiron in Aries. We have this meeting of the planet of Mercury and Venus also happening in Aries. Venus started going retrograde on the 1st of March and will be retrograde through around the midpoint of April. And Mercury is getting ready to go retrograde, so it will start going retrograde actually on the 15th of this month, so a couple of days after the eclipse. And then we have this grouping of planets over here. We have Neptune, Saturn, and the Sun, and then the marker for the North Node. The Sun and Saturn are just a degree apart today, so they are basically in conjunction. The Sun is highlighting where we feel called to be responsible or respond to our sense of self, and what changes are being highlighted for us. Now, considering that the Sun is going to take, of course, 365 days to move around this wheel, Saturn will be out of the sign of Pisces. I want to say it's going to be in Pisces for most of this year. I'm actually looking at an ephemeris. Yeah, it kind of moves into Aries. Does it move into Aries at all? It does. It moves into Aries just a little bit in August and July, and then it will retrograde back to Pisces, and so it may actually have another meeting point with the Sun in about a year's time before it actually moves on its path to move around the entirety of the wheel, which will take another 28 years or so. So what's interesting about this is that they're also in alignment with the North Node, and the North Node is kind of like the astrological sky pointing at where we need to be putting our attention. The opposite of the North Node would be the South Node, which is over in the sign of Virgo here at the same degree, and which is why we're going to be experiencing a full eclipse. So this eclipse is ultimately trying to align us with our path and showing us what big changes and big shifts we need to make in our lives so that we are in sync with our higher self, so to speak. So these couple of conjunctions that are happening right here is conversation between Mercury and Venus. They'll both be moving retrograde, kind of reviewing some area of their lives and our sense of self, because it's in the sign of Aries. And then also our relationship with our faith, this energy over here in Pisces, and that those parts of ourselves that are our self-saboteurs, which we are dissolving so we can ultimately move forward in the direction we are called to grow in. Now, all of this is confirmed again in the tarot reading for this week. I always think it's interesting how big transits kind of show up in the reading. Our opening card that we have is the Fool. Now, Fool is a card of unexpected, unavoidable changes. that are shifting things that have been stable that are keeping us from progressing. In the Fool card, we see an individual who has a wand with a satchel tied to it, which has everything that they need to carry on their journey. They have a dog at their heels, similar to how Mr. Boots sticks around my heels when I walk around with him out in the world. But he seems to be a little carefree, as he's approaching this precipice. There is no fear. He has a full sense of faith in him as he's moving forward on this journey. Now, this card is also speaking to the breath of God and to follow your faith, follow your heart. If you are in a place of question, don't paralyze yourself in the mind, but actually listen to this compass that we all have inside of our chest that not only circulates blood and nutrients around our system, but ultimately is our way that we navigate through the world when we listen to it. I'm actually going to be doing a presentation at this fair that I will be vending at the end of April, which will be talking about the chakra system and the emotional connection to our wellness in our bodies, because I've seen that time and time again when I channel blends for people, that there is this key to our wellness, which is connected to our emotional experience. This card is telling us to have faith and listen to that which we feel pulled toward, almost like a magnet or a gravitational pull. Like, what is calling you away from this point that you're in right now, which is ultimately asking you to grow in a new direction. The challenge that we are working with this week is the 10 of Cups, but it is upside down. This card is speaking to the emotional realm of happily ever after, and it being upside down, I think we're all starting to question what that looks like and how to actually create it. We've been led to believe that if we, cross all our T's and dotted all our I's, everything would line up. And yet we can see how quickly things get dissolved that are out of our power. And so it's really asking us to look at it in a new way, look at it in a new perspective, and reevaluate how we're contributing to it and how we want to contribute toward our own happiness and others in the future. The way through that challenge showed up as the Knight of Cups. We see someone who is on top of a horse, which looks like it is carefully getting ready to cross a stream or river. If you've ever been walking alongside of a river or a stream and you want to cross it, right, you have to look for where it is more calm and where there might be some rocks that you can cross, or maybe where it's more narrow. And this is how we are going to be approaching this situation in our lives. We have to have some kind of emotional vulnerability and openness and move slowly and cautiously as we place our footsteps and move forward. The ultimate outcome came through with a combination of 5 different cards. Of those 5 cards, 4 of them are major arcana, and we already had 1 show up. So ultimately we have 5 major arcanas in this 2, 4, 6, 7 card read for this week, which is highlighting big changes, big shifts, challenges that are showing up in our lives that are asking us to step toward them. Now, the first of these ultimate outcome cards came through as the Death card. The Death card does seem kind of scary and overwhelming, but consider that it is a card of transformation. Some aspect of our lives we have to be willing to let go of, or we'll have to let cease to exist in order for us to move forward and be reborn again. This is a card of transformation. Now, in the Scorpion, sign, there's actually 3 creatures that are associated with it. It's the only sign that has 3 creatures. Typically it's 2 if it's not a person. But in this situation, we have both we have the scorpion, we have the eagle, and then we have ultimately the phoenix, which is seen in the background of this card. A creature who rises and is reborn from the ashes of something. So this also confirms that idea of something having to go through a process of refinement, something having to be let go of or let to pass so that something else can be reborn from it. So that's a big transformational energy. Interestingly enough, this sign sits opposite of the sign of Taurus, which is where Uranus is currently. So these big changes that are happening to our resources, our stability, our agriculture, all of these things are forcing us in a lot of ways to transform something, and we can't go back once we start moving forward. So you have to really place your footsteps purposefully as you forge that path in front of you. That card was further clarified by the Seven of Wands, which is a card of boundaries. We see someone who is holding their ground, right? They have their wand in front of them, and they have these 6 wands that are in the foreground kind of surrounding them. So another piece of this to note is that they are also wearing 2 different types of shoes. So it's like they're trying to find balance between 2 different experiences and holding a boundary so that they can create that space to ultimately recreate themselves or build something new. They need some separation from that which they are leaving behind. Now, the next 3 cards are really interesting to me, the first of which is the Lover's card. Now, this is a card about choices and making choices that are in alignment with, ultimately your aim or your goal, right? And how do you make those choices? What are your measuring factors within that choice? What is in alignment with you and your being and what's important to you and your beliefs? What's so interesting about this card showing up for me personally is that it is kind of highlighting the energy of Mercury, because this card is associated with the sign of Gemini, which is where currently Jupiter is at, bringing some kind of expansion. And Gemini is governed by the planet of Mercury, which is getting ready to go retrograde and is in conversation right now with the planet of Venus. So Venus is currently retrograde right now, kind of in a process of review around some kind of relationship. It could be a relationship with a female, it could be a relationship with a partner. And then we have Mercury, who is also going to be retrograde. So we could see some conversations come into the forefront from people in our past that are seeking some kind of resolution, or possibly, to be restarted again. But you have to evaluate if it is ultimately, again, as I said, in alignment with your belief system. How does it feel? Does it feel like there is growth potential? Or does it feel like you just need to resolve something so you can have your energy free to put towards something that truly does reciprocate your energy? This is really interesting that this showed up to me. And then that is further clarified by the Judgment card. So we see people who are moving out of the dark, being called to something higher by this archangel that is in the sky, blowing its trumpet, and they're coming out of a darkness, right? They're coming out of some confinement and they're being called to something new. And this is also associated with the planet of Pluto, which right now is at 3 degrees of Aquarius. And it's also in a fixed sign. So there is, some information that could be coming about that you could be revealed, especially in this retrograde kind of dance between Venus and Mercury. And that is a truth that you can't ignore. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once you know something, you can't unknow it, so to speak. And it is calling us to something new. Now, the final card that we have for the reading this week is actually the Hanged Man. Now, this card is associated with the energetics of Pisces and also the planet of Neptune. And we see someone who is hanging from a tree upside down. Their energy is being pulled into and around their head, almost as if they're getting this awareness through seeing something in a new perspective. And it's also a card of surrendering. And so there is something that we have to just accept in this situation that we are stepping into. Truths that we have to accept, something that we have to surrender to that is outside of our control, and also a new perspective that we can gather from seeing things in a new way. And This is an interesting energetic to have as our last card, because we have right now the North Node in Pisces. We have Neptune currently in Pisces, which is the sign that it governs. We have the Sun in Pisces, and we have Saturn in Pisces. And as I had highlighted in the very beginning of the video, Saturn and the Sun are currently just 1 degree apart. So what is it that you are being asked to look at in a new light? What is it that you are being asked to surrender to by way of awareness and what you see? And maybe it's surrendering to an aspect of yourself that really needs to be nurtured. It needs to have energy put toward it. It needs to be taken care of. And what have you been ignoring in that way in your own life that's actually crucially important to you? We will see some big changes coming upon us in the next 6 months, as we go through this kind of eclipse gauntlet. It's a portal of some sorts, and we'll be seeing some big changes in not only our own lives, but also the lives of people in our community and our friends and our families. And I just want us all to be supportive in that, because we're all going through it in some reflection of light in some capacity. I want to send you a good wish. I send you so much love, and I am looking forward to seeing what is to come, in hopes that it is aligning us with that which is where we feel like we can develop ourselves and what we can bring to the world and contribute to our community. I send you a lot of love, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.